confirm who is present. Nicholas Harrison, our Democratic Service Officer, will ask members to indicate their presence after their name is called. When invited to speak, you should unmute your microphones and switch on your video. When you're not participating in the meeting, please make sure you've muted your microphone and switched off your video. Over to you, Nicholas.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs. Bowkett.
I'm present.
Councillor Oxby.
Present.
Councillor Mrs. Austin.
Present.
Councillor Bridges. No. Councillor Cullen. Councillor Griggs.
Present.
Councillor Higgs. Councillor Matthews.
Present.
Councillor Sneath.
Present.
Councillor Spratt. Councillor Dr. Thompson.
Present.
And I think we have Executive Councillor Davey.
Present.
And do we have Councillor Poll?
Not available today. He's not attending.
Okay, thank you. That's all, Chairman.
Thank you. I'd like to ask members of the committee and other participants to type speak in the chat if you wish to ask a question or make a contribution. Requests to speak will be collated by the Vice Chairman. Please can you keep your questions clear and concise? And also just a reminder again, please turn off your camera and microphone when not participating in the meeting. Can I also ask the members, if you're intending to leave, indicate also using the chat function. Officers do not need to do so. We will now move on to the formal agenda. So item 1, apologies for absence. Do we have any, Nick?
I've just got apologies from Councillor Higgs.
Thank you. Item 2, do you have declarations of members' interest? Does anybody have any declarations today?
None I've got, Chair.
No? Okay, thank you. So item 3, minutes of the previous meeting held on 14th of July. Can we confirm that these minutes are a correct record? Have you got any problems with them? You read them?
I move, Chair.
Okay, so I've got a proposer. Can we have a seconder, please?
I'll propose, Madam Chairman. It's Ron here.
Oh, I've got a proposer. Can I have a seconder? You can second them then, Ron, yeah?
Okay.
Thank you. So we've got a proposer and a seconder. We've got nobody against and nobody abstaining, I can see. So over to Nick. Nick will call out each member's name and in turn to record their vote and then we announce the result of the vote.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Austin.
Is this for the minute? Sorry.
Yes, for the minutes.
Yeah, 4.
Thank you. Councillor Bowkett.
4.
Councillor Bridges. Councillor Cullen. Councillor Griggs.
4.
Councillor Oxby.
4.
Councillor Matthews.
4.
Councillor Sneath.
4.
Councillor Spratt.
4.
Councillor Thompson.
4.
Okay, that's unanimous, Chairman.
Thank you very much.
Those present.
Thank you. Right, so we go on to item 4, which is the announcements by the chairman, executive councillors and lead officers. I don't have any announcements today. Councillor David, do you have an announcement?
Yeah, just 2 or 3 points, Chairman. Firstly, the South Lincolnshire Food Enterprise Zone at Holbeach has been awarded a grant to deliver an £8.5 million accelerated development scheme as part of the government's Getting Building Fund. Last week we finished work on the first phase of that project and we'll embark on phase 2 in the next couple of weeks. So that's really good news for the food sector, for the south of the county and for the strength that Lincolnshire has nationally in the food and agri-tech world. Secondly, further north in Skegness, construction of the extension to the Skegness Business Park started on the 10th of August. Completion is due in March of 21. We will then open it up to employers in sectors which will help diversify the coastal economy. Moving on to the visitor economy, there is a mixed picture of how the economy has been impacted by COVID-19. Since the relaxation of lockdown, some tourism businesses, such as self-catering and caravan sites, are reporting strong business, including forward business into the autumn and into 21. Many other businesses are finding that social distancing makes their business model uneconomic, while others are very dependent on the event and wedding market. A tourism commission for Greater Lincolnshire is to be formed that I will chair, that will meet over the next 6 months to discuss how a county-wide DMO, Destination Management Organisation, can work. Further on tourism, the new Hut-Off Boatshed Cafe is nearing completion, with the off-site constructed modular building due to be installed and commissioned in the next few weeks. That again will help raise the quality of the tourism offer on the coast. Just mentioning Hut-Off, we've sadly been inundated with the usual problems of motorhomes and people parking illegally there. So I'm working across the council with our various departments to finalise plans to make the coastal country park area much more managed and secure for the next season. In response to COVID-19, we have been supporting our small business tenants with a total around 200 in our business centres and industrial units by offering a 3-month suspension of rent collection from April to June, and then putting in place phased repayment plans over the remainder of the year, which helps reduce the pressure on their cash flow due to the impact of the virus. And finally, a couple of other points. Greater Lincolnshire has been successful in bidding for Department for International Trade high potential opportunity status for its food chain and technology base. Each year, the government promotes a small number of these HPOs to showcase the investment potential in the UK to international investors. And Lincolnshire is obviously delighted that its food sector has been recognised in this way. So I'm looking forward to welcoming more international businesses to the county around that sector. As some of you will be aware, the government's Kickstart grant scheme was launched last week. The government asked our Growth Hub to distribute the grants to help businesses to respond to COVID. We were allocated £735,000 of government funding, with grants between £1,000 and £3,000. So we would be able to help between 245 and 735 businesses. The grant pot was hugely oversubscribed within an hour, and we had to close the bidding round within 65 minutes, I think, of it opening. Firstly, we'd already publicised the grant that would be available on a first-come, first-served basis. And also, we're not alone in the UK. Demand has outstripped budget everywhere in the country. So we're making the case to government for extra money to support businesses. And obviously, we decided to close the bidding round to stop other businesses from having false expectations or wasting their time. All businesses who weren't able to apply are being given advice on all the other sources of funding and information that we offer. So, Chairman, that's my announcements. There's more in the County Council agenda, my statement to Council and regarding environment and the steeping, etc. But I'm happy to pick up any questions from members.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions to Councillor Davey? I've just got one. I think it's been announced today at the Bacchus factory is being closed at Spalding. That must be a huge job loss. Are we being involved in that to sort of help with anything?
I know Councillor Worth, who's on our executive board and who's also the deputy leader down at South Holland, is closely involved in that. And we're always here to support any of the districts that have these kind of issues. There are changes taking place across the food sector, as we're all aware from the announcements by Upper Crust and Costa Coffee and Pret. That factory, I think, is heavily involved in making salads, salad bowls for the market. Well, there are no office workers back at work buying those products, So they're obviously making changes to the way they manage their business. There's going to be a lot more of that. And obviously, as the furlough scheme winds out, we're probably going to see quite a lot more redundancies in the next couple of months. And that is something that I suspect is going to impact particularly around the hospitality, leisure, tourism, visitor economy sectors, with some changes in the food sector, particularly those that supply products to supermarkets and office centres, since the demand is no longer there.
Yeah, very sad, isn't it? Very sad. Thank you for that. Well, I can't see any other questions on the chat line. Nobody wants to come in, so if we move over, thank you, Colin, for that. David or Vanessa, do you have anything, David?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, very briefly. As you know, particularly at the moment, we are very keen to project the voice of Lincolnshire to government, to present a correct picture of how things work here, particularly in the environmental sector, where we do have so much to offer, and where we have so many strong links through the environment sector into the broader economy of the county. We're continuing to project Lincolnshire's profile despite current restrictions. We've been invited as officers to attend a workshop with George Eustace, Secretary of State at DEFRA, towards the end of September, beginning the process of looking at targets under the Environment Bill. So we'll be looking to particularly sort of press the case that would reflect Lincolnshire's circumstances and its communities in that context. It's an interesting invitation, actually, because it explicitly says that DEFRA is keen to get the views from local authorities, as they put it, outside the London bubble. I think if that is true, then the fairly concerted efforts we've made over the years to speak to our ministerial colleagues and to civil servants may be bearing some fruit at last. So I'm hoping that's going to be a really positive thing. I'll also hope to speak to Vanessa before we do that piece of work, as she's been working very much on the county's position in terms of the Environment Bill. So again, I want to make sure we're feeding in the best information from the widest possible range of services when we do that. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. No questions on David. So Vanessa, is anything you want to come in with?
Nothing from me. I think we've covered everything across those two. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Right then, so if we no questions on there, so we'll move on to item 5, which is the South Lincolnshire Food Enterprise Zone. This item outlines the work being undertaken on the South Lincolnshire Food Enterprise Zone in Holbeach and seeks the committee's views on an initial proposal for the future branding of the scheme. This item will be presented by Simon Wright, who's the Principal Officer at Regeneration. And just a reminder, if you'd like to put input into this item, please type speak into the chat thread even, and we'll take questions at the end of the report. If you can just bear in mind that we are going to be of the in the report, so if you can just bear that in mind as you're listening to the report going through. So over to you, Simon. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the opportunity to update you this morning on the Food Enterprise Zone programme. To very quickly set some context for the programme, just to recap really, the site is located on the northern edge of Holbeach, northwest of Holbeach, and the County Council is very much focused on the delivery of phase 1 of the project, which is on approximately 15 acres of land, which are already owned by the County Council. We've done some master planning of that site, and the site is shown to create circa 12 development plots, which we're offering to the market. The site benefits from a local development order, which has been adopted by South Holland District Council and creates a much simplified planning regime for anybody looking to take space. Which is a major factor to de-risk the scheme going forward. One of our first anchor tenants on the scheme will be the University of Lincoln, and they are completing their Centre of Excellence building early in the new year. Anybody who's driven by the site recently will see the framework of the building progressing very well, and we're very pleased that that will be completed in the coming months. In the last 18 months or so, the County Council has been very focused on providing utilities to the whole of Phase 1. The paper provides a schedule of those utilities, a bit of technical information which I won't go through, but we're pleased to report that the last major utility piece of the jigsaw has been power, but we are confident that the power will be available to us hopefully mid 2021 at the earliest. It has been quite a complex, expensive project requiring an upgrade in the power lines from Spalding to Holbeach. So it has taken quite a lot of work with Western Power to get that work underway, and as we edge towards completion. Recent successes, Councillor Davies already mentioned those actually, so I won't dwell too much on that, but we are very pleased that we've attracted the Getting Building Fund, as well as extending our work to provide utilities and service roads with that money. The other major thing that I would like to give a little bit more detail for you this morning is on our plans to build a hub building. As you will know, we have a good track record of running a managed workspace, and we're across the county. And I think the best way to compare the hub building is going to be akin to one of our business centres, where we'll be able to offer easy in, easy out lease terms to small start-up or spin-out businesses. And picking up some of the concerns you've already expressed this morning about the economy and the food sector in South Lincolnshire, it is really hoped that providing not only the FES in its entirety, but also the hub building, it will give the opportunities for the sector to come out of the current difficulties in the strongest position as possible by creating that business space to allow people to grow and develop from their small business ideas, and to support the wider food chain in South Lincolnshire. We are working to a very tight programme on the hub building, because the building will have to be completed in March 2022. That is an ambitious timeline. We think it's deliverable. We're working very closely and very hard with consultants to help us project manage that build. And on Friday, in fact, we will be interviewing and hopefully selecting from that interview process our preferred design team. We would really like some architects to come up with something really striking for that building, because it will be on a very key, prominent, highly visible site, and it will set the tone for what we hope the food enterprise zone will become. With all that going on, we are very mindful that it's the right time to start thinking about the marketing and promotion of the food enterprise zone. This was our view on that is supported by the Collinson report, which really makes the giving the FES an identity as a really important consideration. We've included in the paper some thoughts that was shared by the Collinson report on that, by referring to the food enterprise zone as being part of the food valley. And I think it's important to think of that not just in the Holbeach context, because clearly, as you all know, Holbeach is in the middle of the Fens, but it's really setting a more regional context for Holbeach, looking at all the other food enterprise zones, not only in Greater Lincolnshire and up on the South Bank, but also as you go into East Anglia, into Norfolk and Suffolk. There is a very strong network of similar facilities. And we are really the bullseye, if you like, at the centre of that whole network. And we really wanted to sort of capitalise on that fantastic location. So we would really welcome some feedback from the Scrutiny Committee members today on that branding, and any thoughts on that particular moniker that's been suggested. So in conclusion, we believe that the public sector must continue its lead role in bringing forward the FES, not only because of the economic challenges that we face, but also because of some of the sort of micro viability issues, which means we are a key driver to bring forward the scheme. Some fantastic progress has been made, some really exciting things coming up on the horizon for us, and key to that is having a stronger identity for the South Lincolnshire Food Enterprise Zone. And so that's really a very quick summary of my paper and some of the key messages I wanted to share with you. Thank you very much for your time. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. That's very interesting. Does anybody like to invite members of the committee to comment on the report? I haven't got anybody in the chat. Do you? Oh, Elizabeth, Councillor Sneath.
Yes, please. I'm just struggling with the IT at the moment. Yes,
that's fine.
Great. Excellent. I think I should have said I am a district councillor at South Holland, so I know quite a bit about this, and I drive through Holbeach often, so I've seen the site from the start. Can you just tell me, Simon, which plot is the university? Is it number 1 or is it number 1?
Yeah, yes, it is, Councillor Smith. Yeah. The university is taking plot 1, and the hub building, which I've mentioned and described very briefly, we've identified plot 12 for that, if you've got the plan there.
I have, yes. Yeah. And I'd like to say how much I like the plan. It's really attractive and just makes me want to see it develop because it looks almost magical. You know, it's a lovely layout, isn't it? But one thing I hope, having had quite a lot of experience of a industrial site or something similar in Pinchbeck, where we've got a lot of problems with parking, I just want to know that at this early stage we are including an incredible amount of parking, because I've got constant problems with businesses down Wardentree Lane Enterprise Way in Pinchbeck, big site down there, with people parking badly and blocking entrances. But from this it does look as though there is each block has its own parking. Am I right?
Yes, you are correct, Councillor Smith. The plan does show car parking facilities on each of those plots. Yeah. Obviously the detail to be confirmed, but that is a key consideration for the scheme.
I know it's vital from all the stuff that's the problems that are coming from Pinchbeck. Yeah. I was just seeing if I've got no, that was about it. But yeah, really excited by it, you know, only because I'm in Holbeach quite a lot. I think it's going to be great. And yeah, so pleased it's in South Holland, actually. It's wonderful for us. Thanks very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. Councillor Austin's next.
Thank you, Chairman. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Good. Right. 3 fairly quick questions, I think. It suggests that the plots are being let on a very long lease. Now, is this different from what happens on the Curtin Distribution Park, where I thought that the plots were actually sold? Or, so that's my first question. Shall I give you all 3 questions in one go, Simon?
Yes, I'm happy to take all 3. Thank you, Councillor Austin.
I expect somewhere we have been told how much all of this is going to cost LCC. But my third comment related to the idea of the UK Food Valley. I would love somewhere just to squeeze in the word Lincolnshire, because, you know, they'll think, oh, it's too easy to think East Anglia, isn't it? And we're not East Anglia, we are Lincolnshire. We're proud of being Lincolnshire. So can that word somehow creep in? You know, Lincolnshire at the heart of the UK Food Valley or something. Anyway, those are just sort of early suggestions. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Austin. Taking your questions in turn, if I may. Yes, you're quite right. We are proposing at this stage to offer very long leasehold interests on the FES scheme, and the reason why we're doing that, so it's as a landlord we can have greater control over the common areas. We obviously want the FES to be a high quality business location, and we will want to make sure that things such as the verges and any landscaping is well maintained. And it was just felt that as a landlord, it's easier for us to take that role and apply a service charge to all of the the long leaseholders that take space from us. That is slightly different from other schemes that we've done in Lincolnshire. There's no right or wrong way, but we just felt on this occasion it would be more appropriate to consider these as long leasehold interests at the moment. In terms of cost, Councillor Austin, yes, I mean there is an element of match funding with all of the government funding that we've attracted to the scheme. Some of that funding has come from Lincolnshire County Council, some has come from partners, including South Holland District Council. I can provide a bit more information on that. I'll be honest, I'll take advice on this. I'm very conscious this is a public meeting, and I don't know, would members rather me drop that a note on that separately?
Yeah, I would say that was a good idea. If you email the costs out to people, that would be good. We have got other speakers as well, so yeah, if you could send it round to us, that would be good.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, thank you, Chair, for that guidance. And the third point, I'll take as positive feedback, Councillor Austin, in terms of wanting to see the word Lincolnshire in any branding. That point is captured. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Austin. Right, next speaker is Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wondered if there's any provision for photo EVs charging points and energy saving measures in the hub or on the site.
Yes, Councillor Thompson, yes, I think there will be. To be honest, we haven't really got into that fine-grained detail, but I would hope that would be built into any when schemes come forward. We did look, actually, very quickly, we did look at alternative means to provide power to the site, and it just proved to be very costly and still quite risky when we was looking at as a solution for the scheme as a whole. So we did in the end revert to a more traditional delivery model for the power. But I would hope that on a site-by-site basis, those sorts of technologies are incorporated.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chairman.
No problem. If you've got any other speakers, I can't see anything on the chat line. Ron, do you want to ask any questions?
Thank you, Chairman. Well, I was going to ask a question, but it might be too soon. You mentioned marketing, and I just wondered, under the present sort of situation, do you think people might be a bit reluctant to sort of put the head above the parapet and say, well, I'll have one, thinking that, you know, if you have another bit of a COVID issue, that it might put a spoke back in the wheel?
Yeah, very interesting question, and it's a difficult one to answer definitively. I mean, what I can say, Councillor Oxley, looking across our portfolio as a whole, it's been a real mixed message actually. But the net effect in terms of our vacancies is probably going to be zero. Actually, yes, we have lost some tenants, but we've also had tenants who wanted extra space. And so, you know, our voids are, I think at the end of this, our voids will probably look about the same as they did, and, you know, quite healthy in terms of our occupancy. I think you're right to raise it. It's clearly an issue. The reality is, before the power's on site for the whole of phase one, it's going to be mid-2021, and I hope the world looks very different then. But I think it needs to be seen in the context of you know, companies will lose people, but they'll be good people with ideas, and they will want space to nurture those ideas, and that's what we hope the hub can do. And then going on from that, as sort of technology increases, we think the hub, the FES as a whole, will focus on cutting edge technology, which will support all of the big producers in South Lincolnshire. So we're thinking about sort of robotics and improving those sort of food supply lines. So I hope that as we emerge from COVID and Brexit, this will be well placed to hit the ground running, I think, Councillor Oxley.
Good. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ron. It sounds like it's very exciting stuff.
It really is, yeah, and it's happening at a really fast pace. Actually, it is exciting, as you say, Councillor. Thank you.
Good. No, and that's good as well that it's happening quickly, not being delayed for a long time, you know, because people sometimes think, oh, you know, we build something and then it gets delayed. So we've got the actions then. The committee has been asked to consider and note the update on implementation of phase 1 of the South Lincolnshire Food Enterprise Zone and provide feedback on the branding suggestion that has been made for the scheme. And the proposal, I move that we note the progress in phase 1 of the South Lincolnshire FES. We've had some highlights of things like the business space to grow small businesses, food chain, branded area, attractive layout, and the suggestion on that has been indicated to us to use the UK Food Valley as a I mean, I think that's quite a good option. I know Councillor Austin has said put Lincolnshire in there, but if we are going over the borders, I can't really see that we could actually link Lincolnshire as a Lincolnshire Food Valley. So I think, I don't know what you think there, but I think we are going to have to stick with the UK Food Valley. So if I can ask if you are all in agreement, if anyone dissents, please indicate in the chat now. No, I've got no one dissenting, so I think that then that's been carried and that has been agreed. Thank you very much. Is that okay, Simon? Yep.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair, and thank you everybody for your time this morning. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll look forward to coming back again and seeing more exciting things from it. Thank you very much.
I do hope so. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, so if we move on to item 6, which is the Coastal Tourism Infrastructure and Arts Project. Another exciting project coming. This item provides an update on recent tourism and infrastructure projects completed by the County Council and details those in the pipeline. The item will be presented by Peter Fender, who's our Special Projects Officer. And just a reminder, if you'd like to put in input into the item, please type speak into the chat, and we'll take questions once Peter has made his report to the committee. So hand over to you, Peter.
Hi, just checking you can see me this morning.
Yeah, I can hear you. I can see you. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Fantastic. Yeah, I mean, this is a paper on tourism, and I'm sorry I didn't make the pre-meet. I was doing some research by going somewhere else in England for tourism, camping. Unfortunately, we were blown off by a storm that has hit us in Woolacombe at the time. So it's nice to be back in Lincolnshire. The paper highlights briefly, well, the importance of tourism obviously is a big thing. Councillor Davies already mentioned that, particularly on the Lincoln coast, and how the County Council has been involved and led on a series of projects recently on the coast in the last few years, including the new Gibraltar Point Visitors Centre, the North Sea Observatory, and the other project that Councillor Davies also mentioned, which is a new visitor centre and building at Huttoft. You also mentioned the effects of COVID, amongst other things, on the coast at the moment. Just one piece of information for members who only just recently got is that the North Sea Observatory has actually had a busier summer this summer than it's had before. So it's had 30,000 visitors have come through the door this summer since it's been semi-lifted. And obviously that's been a major strain trying to get that through with all the other restrictions. But it does find that there's a lot of people out there wanting to visit the beach. In addition to the larger sort of infrastructure projects, we've also been involved in a series of art projects like the Bathing Beauties and the structures on the edge, which have introduced a new audience. During this period and in the past, Lincolnshire also have been very keen to be involved in plans to mark the 400th anniversary of the Mayflower's journey to the US. Obviously, most of you will know Lincolnshire's important place in that journey. We were particularly looking in and around the Boston area. For those that don't know the original story, the original travellers tried to leave from Scotia Creek, which was just near Fishtoft in Boston, but were they captured. But they were taking it into Boston before later on continuing the journey from elsewhere. So Boston, in particular, does have an important part in that role. So back in 2017, a partnership was created between Lincolnshire County Council, Boston Borough Council, and Frampton Marsh RSPB to create a series of projects in and around the Boston area to mark Lincoln's important place in the journey, and also to create new interest on the coast and tourism around the Boston area. In particular, LCC were going to lead on the Scotia Creek project, which is the one at Fishtoft, where the original Pilgrim Fathers tried to leave. There is a small historic monument there, but people were very keen to see a new feature there that would ideally attract visitors coming over as part of initially, obviously, as part of the Pilgrim Fathers Memorial But obviously this will continue from both this year. COVID has unfortunately affected the number of visitors we've had, specifically from America this year, but a number of celebrations relating to the Mayflower have now been pushed forward to next year, so that will continue. So LCC launched an international design competition back in 2017 and appointed an architect who came up with the design. The designs for Scotia Creek are later on in the report, if you want to have a look at later on in the report. LCC had a small amount of match funding that we put forward for the project, but we needed exterior funding, so we went to the Arts Council and we were very successful in receiving £90,000 of Arts Council funding for the piece of artwork at Scotia Creek. Earlier this year, the artwork received planning permission and consent from the Environment Agency. It does sit on flood defence, so obviously the Environment Agency and the marine organisations are all very keen and involved in that process, and how it was fitted and how it tied in with the landscape was very important. It's going to be installed later on this year, probably before Christmas, and then obviously a series of celebrations early in the new year combined with the other celebrations relating to the Mayflower journey. The artwork itself is about navigation. It's about Boston's part in the world and exploration of the world. So it looks at how previous navigators would have navigated by the stars. It doesn't just centre on the pilgrims element of it, so it's a feature really for all those, and to encourage visitors to stay. It's also on the new coastal footpath, so hopefully we'll get a whole series of new visitors in that area. The Environment Agency are working in that area at the moment for works related to the Boston Barrier. So there's bank works taking place at the same time, and new footpaths being created. So it'll be at the centrepiece of a lot of new attractions in that area. Hopefully the members, in conclusion, members will continue to support projects like this that Lincolnshire County Council lead on the coast, and specifically the huge arts and infrastructure projects we've been involved in recently, and in particular in Scotia Creek. If you've got any questions, I know there is some designs for the artwork later on. I'm more than happy to answer any questions on those.
Thank you. It's fantastic, isn't it? It sounds absolutely. This statue is going to be really interesting, isn't it?
It is.
It's really exciting. Is there any questions from anybody? Okay. Yeah, Councillor Matthews.
Hello, Peter.
Good morning.
Thanks ever so much for your presentation, and it looks really exciting what's going on at Boston. I want to link two things, really. Something that Councillor Davies spoke about earlier, and something you've spoken about, the structures on the edge and the bathing beauties. It is fantastic that we create these things in order to raise the profile of Lincolnshire, and indeed it is clearly working. But that success brings with it drawbacks. So where we're strengthening the public estate in terms of heritage and culture, and actually we're increasing tourism, are we as a council investing the human infrastructure to manage and maintain those structures? So for instance, the bathing beauties huts, I'm not necessarily safe and useful to use at the moment because they haven't been well maintained. Where we've got fantastic visits to the, what will be Huttoff Terrace, we haven't got a wardening force and we haven't got a management force written into that cost. So I'm asking about this dilemma of, we are creating success. Everything we're doing is good, but in the public estate, should we be also providing the cost for management of those issues in terms of maintenance and actual management of the crowd after the event? So it's additional budget costs really that I'm asking.
I can't necessarily answer the question on the budget, Councillor Matthews, but in terms of Scotia Creek and some of the other projects, we've always been keen to find an appropriate organisation to take over the management or the ownership of them. So in Scotia Creek, although Boston Borough Council haven't financially contributed to the project, it's on Boston Borough Council land, and they've taken over the responsibility of maintaining the structure. So in that case, that doesn't fall to the County Council, it falls to Boston Borough Council. At Huttoft, obviously the building will remain a County Council building, but we have a tenant in there, and their lease covers all aspects of maintenance of the building. So it is a challenge to get people to look after structures once we've completed them, as you say. We are reasonably successful at getting capital funding. It's much more difficult to get revenue funding to look after those sort of structures. And there is nothing worse than spending good money if it's then not taken care of. We get a lot of press interest in these structures. We do spend money looking after them. It's increasingly difficult to find that money to look after them well.
Thank you. Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Matthews. So if we move back on then to Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Chairman. As you can imagine, there's obviously quite a lot of questions being fed to me by my neighbour, my husband, but there's some points of my own as well. Now, his first question, which he's asking through me, is will the Mayflower 2020, in other words 2021 now, will details of that be available soon, please, Peter?
Most of that's been led by an organisation called Mayflower 400, I think they are, and I know they've hinted recently that some of those events, well, none of the events have been cancelled, some of them have been pushed back, some of them were due to take place next summer anyway. So we're waiting to see what that programme is, to see how we coordinate any opening at Scotia Creek. But I know there's going to be a series of events taking place next summer. Traditionally, American tourists come in the summer period, so they'll be looking for, most of those I expect to be next summer. But Boston and the Mayflower group are heavily involved in those, and we'll coordinate with those.
Okay, if I may go on, please, Chairman. My second comment that's been passed to me is that can there be more prominence for this on the LCC website?
Yeah, we did release a press release in advance of the committee meeting today, which has gone onto the website. But I think we were waiting to, I suppose, to launch it when people could visit it, and that's not until December. It's not getting installed till December. So we were looking for a kind of a launch when it is available to the public. At the moment, there's no access to the site at all because of the Environment Agency works while they continue their barrier works. So the public footpath's closed and there's no access to the site until about Christmas anyway. So we will, we look to do a more major launch once the artwork's gone in.
Can I make a, I think perhaps misunderstood, because I think we meant the Mayflower celebrations in general. Yes, I know perhaps for the information for other members, one big concern with regards to the Pilgrim Fathers Memorial is that it's not visible from the river. And of course, there are trips down the river and you can't see them. So and equally, if you looked at the memorial itself, then you wouldn't be able to see the river. So that was one of the concerns that we made, certainly from the Heritage Forum that I'm involved with, that it should be actually visible, which I think is going to be now. Obviously, we appreciate that with the sensitivity of banks, flood banks, you can't build a structure on them. So it's basically almost like a lean-to, isn't it?
Yes. Could I just comment on? I was just going to say the new structure is on the river side of the footpath, so it is visible from the river, which the original one wasn't.
Good. Yeah. Right, and so if Mayflower in general could be given greater publicity, please, on the County Council website, I'm sure there must be opportunity somewhere. And I think, otherwise it's a comprehensive report, thank you. Boston has had a lot of Arts Council funding over the last 5 years or more, and as a result there's a lot of public art around the town as a whole, which was all organised by Transported Art. And the actual Mayflower has the Illuminate project, the Illuminate procession each year, and I think Boston's is seen as the most spectacular in the country, which is very good. I'd like to just take question one word, please, on your report. On page 25, in the wash, you don't moor a boat against a bollard, it's a boy.
I do apologise.
I thought of bollards in the wash was a little bit amusing. But other than that, yes, we're getting these boys around, and some of them are very substantial, and we look forward to seeing that side of it. So thank you very much for publicising it, Boston in particular. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Austin. Can I just remind you that, Councillor Austin, that it should be you asking the questions, not the member of the public. This is a scrutiny committee, and I have just had a query on that. So if you could make sure the questions are coming from yourself, Councillor Austin. Thank you. Right, thank you. There's no more questions in the, no more councillors asking questions in the, oh no, there is, sorry, Councillor Griggs, it's just Councillor Griggs.
Yeah, it's just a quick one from me. It's not a question. It's more to say, yeah, it's fantastic. The project, I think it'll really enhance the local environment, and not only, and projects like this are really fantastic, not just from creating tourism coming from outside, but it gets local people more interested in the history of Lincolnshire, and yeah, we have an absolutely fantastic history right across the county. So, and more projects like this, fantastic.
Thank you, Councillor Griggs. And I would agree on that. It's definitely, I mean, anything to do with this excites me. I think it's just anything that we build or on the coast and enhance the coast is absolutely fantastic. And I mean, this report is really good. I just not really a query as such. Councillor talked about it earlier on, the Horticultural site. I was really concerned that on the pre-meet that we weren't going to have enough car parking. So I hope we are going to just have a little look at that. I know Councillor David did talk about that earlier, but that really does concern me there, because as we know, when the summer season comes, people do to park on the car terrace to go on the beach, and there isn't that much car parking space there. And I know it is cost, but I do think we need to keep an eye on that. Councillor David's coming in now, so I'm sure he's going to make a comment as well.
Thank you, Chairman. Absolutely. As I said, I've tasked officers across the organisation to look at the whole coastal. Sorry about the background noise.
No problem.
Thank you. So, as I was saying, we've tasked the officers to look across the whole organisation about how we manage the coastal country park area. As you'll be aware, we now have the National Trust as formal partners in the coastal country park area with their purchase of the land at Sandylands. So between our two organisations, we met last week, we're going to develop some ideas going forward. But I agree, the car parking issues have been challenging on the coast this year, particularly in the natural coast areas, because visitors have descended on them in bigger numbers than ever before. And as Peter has said, the observatory numbers are just a testament to the fact that visitors want to come to our wonderful Lincolnshire natural coast. We're going to need to make long-term provision for what I consider will be an increased number of visitors in the years going forward. So there is work to be done, and we're going to be doing that over the next few months. Thanks, Chairman.
Thank you. Thanks, Councillor David. Is there anything else you need to say, Peter?
No.
Okay. Brilliant. Right, so the actions that we were asked to do today, the committee was invited to consider the approach to providing new facilities and attractions to the Lincolnshire coast to attract new visitors and encourage investment, which I think we've done. Proposal is that I move that we have received the report and endorsed the approach in providing new facilities and attractions on the Lincolnshire coast. I think we're all excited to see the new Horticultural site open, and certainly the Mayflower structure is going to be fantastic news for that area, and just if we just do make sure that we put that on the publicity on the website so that people can see that. So can I ask for your agreement that we do that? And if anyone dissents, please indicate in the chat now. No, nobody's dissenting, so thank you, and that is agreed. Thank you, Peter.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. No, so swiftly on to item 7, which is the Green Master Plan update. This item provides an update on the activities and progress towards developing a Green Master Plan, and it will be presented by David Hickman, Head of Environment. And again, just a reminder, if you wish to speak, please put it in the chat thread. Over to you, David.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I'm accompanied by my colleague Helen Jenkins-Knight as well, who's done a lot of the groundwork on putting together the Green Master Plan in its current form. So I may well refer to Helen if anyone asks a really difficult question. Just to remind members of the context of the Green Master Plan, as you'll be aware, last year the County Council committed to a target of net carbon neutrality by 2050, and the Green Master Plan is the result of that commitment. At the bottom of page 31, there you'll see a brief outline of the scope of the Green Master Plan. So it acts as an overarching sort of position statement, a roadmap, if you will, for the county's position, the county's ambition, and to reach that goal by 2050. The second element of it is to set out a clear action plan to achieve those ambitions, and then finally to demonstrate how we are going to actually do that as a council as a whole, including how we're going to monitor progress, and how we're going to maintain accountability and evaluation throughout the process. I think it's important as well to state that the Green Master Plan is intended to help deliver on some of the high-level aspirations set out in the Council's new corporate plan. And I think it's also worth mentioning that, again, members may well be aware of the transformation programme, which is currently in progress across the Council. And the Green Master Plan is being seen as if you will, a golden thread, a theme running throughout all of the individual projects that make up the transformation programme. And we're creating stronger links between the environmental services, the governance structures around the Green Master Plan, and the transformation programme itself. So where we currently are with the Green Master Plan is that we've been consulting with our partners on the overall direction, the overall form and format, if you will, of the Green Master Plan, and we're coming to an end of that process right now. We are currently drafting or preparing an initial draft of the Green Master Plan, which we intend to make available next month. And we still remain on track to present the final version of the Green Master Plan to Scrutiny Committee late this year. We're aiming for November, with the aim of having the Green Master Plan approved and signed off by Council by February next year. A number of key elements within it, I think, to also to bring to members' attention. You will be aware, of course, that we do have a shorter-term carbon management plan, which we've been running for a number of years now. That effectively acts as the if you will, the here and now actions that we're taking forward, and will be incorporated within the Green Master Plan as the short-term actions. We are on track to achieve that carbon management plan. And again, at the bottom of page 32, beginning of page 33 in your pack, you'll see a brief summary of where we are with those initial targets, and if you will, the immediate carbon targets, which will form part of that broader approach to meeting the 2050 commitment. We are intending that the Green Master Plan will not be a static document that will just sit on a shelf. I know it's a little bit of a cliche to use the term living document, but as far as possible, we want to make this an online resource, something that does change and adapt to circumstance and does reflect achievement and success, as well as keeping us on track with our overall goals and objectives. So what we wanted to make sure is that it's regularly updated, that we keep members in the loop as we develop it, and we're also, as you'll see in the conclusion, very keen that members take their part in helping us to shape the plan before we draft it. So there are a couple of questions we are asking specifically. Does that approach of the living document strike a chord with members? Does that seem like a sensible way of going with it? And we're also very interested in members' views on how we manage the publicity around Green Master As you'll appreciate, the process of stakeholder engagement, of developing our partners and our stakeholders, has been significantly more challenging under current working arrangements than it ordinarily would be. Ordinarily, we would have a lot of face-to-face meetings, a lot of a lot of workshops, with a great deal of leeway in the way in which we can achieve that. It's been substantially more difficult to do that this time around. As you'll be aware, we are much more reliant on direct communication techniques, on a much more transactional approach in the way that we undertake communications. And that does impose limitations and restrictions on the extent to which we can engage. So I think any ideas that members would like to share, any guidance they can give to us as officers in how we project this, in how we share the Green Master Plan more widely, would be very gratefully received. I'll just conclude, if I may, with a couple of things. There's a brief summary at the bottom of page 3 there, just before the conclusion of the overall timescale that we're looking at. Those timescales for completing the Green Master Plan. That's just for completing the plan itself. That isn't that isn't for delivery of the projects and the programs that will form the meat of the Green Master Plan. That's to get the actual document itself going and available. But of course, during that time, we will be continuing with the work that's currently in progress through the Carbon Management Plan and through a whole range of initiatives within services right across the council. However, the other element that may be of interest to members is Appendix A. Now, this is the latest information that we had at the time of writing the report on the immediate impacts that we're seeing through the lockdown period of energy usage across county county services and county buildings. Now, I'm going to hand over here to Helen, if I may. Should there be any questions about these particular aspects, but I think members will agree that there's been a significant impact on these areas, and these benefits, if you will, or these impacts are perhaps some of the elements that we would wish to look to retaining the benefit of as we go forward. And as we develop the way the council works in the aftermath of COVID-19 for the future. So, Helen, do you have any more comments you wanted to make on that particular appendix before I conclude?
Yeah, thanks, David. I think it's just to say that I think the numbers speak for themselves, but it's just to say that we've made some significant carbon reductions during this time, and we'd be remiss if we didn't take advantage of those savings that we've made and see how we can implement those in the long term. But if anybody does have any questions, obviously happy to take them. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Helen. I'll conclude there, Chairman, and we'll happily take any suggestions, proposals, or questions from members.
Thank you, David. That's a very interesting report, and thanks to Claire as well. We have a question from Councillor Matthews first.
Hello, David, and thanks very much for that report. I'm interested, and it may be that my understanding of greening is different to the official one, but the New Towns Fund, which has got significant money to spend, or fairly significant money to spend in Aberthorpe, Sutton-on-Sea and Skegness, very interested in greening some of the coastal strip by planting trees, by afforestation, if you like. That's one of the things that they would like to include in their bid. The other thing is that they would quite like to see recreational use of stored water, so actually the creation of reservoirs, possibly for their use as marinas, but also used for water sports and things like that, as part of the general environmentally healthy lifestyle. May not be greening. Are we incorporating those New Towns funds in our plan, or is it too late, or are they completely, in the wrong cul-de-sac?
Thank you for that question, Councillor. We certainly are speaking with the town's funds. We're engaging with them very closely, actually, in a number of different ways. I think the overall objective in the Green Master Plan is that 2050 commitment by the County Council. But I think it's very important that we remember that environmental sustainability is not just about counting carbon targets. There's a huge range of different activities and different initiatives that all form part of a holistic approach and a joined up approach to achieving a better environment. Carbon emissions help us to measure progress. They are useful indicators in that way, but in and of themselves, they're not the whole story. So yes, I would be keen to see the Green Master Plan embrace a very broad spectrum of activities, both county-wide and at local level. And we do see engagement with our district colleagues and with local communities as a key element of developing the Green Master Plan and certainly implementing it from 2021 onwards. Hope that helps.
Yeah, thanks, David. That's exactly what I was asking, really. The key indicators seem to be specific to carbon. Yes. And actually, the agenda is the bigger one, which you've just recognised that you're engaging with that. So thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Chairman, you're on mute.
I do apologise. Councillor Oxby first, and then we've got Councillor Sneath. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I was having a bit of trouble lip reading then, but anyway, somebody told you. It's just a comment, actually, David, because obviously we've got a commitment to be environmentally friendly, etc., by this date of 2050, but surely we're in the hands of other people, because presumably then we'll still be getting electricity from somewhere generated, but I can't see it all being generated by solar. So I think there will be probably coal and gas-fired stations, so they'll be producing carbon still. So again, do you think we're still in the hands, or will be at that time, of other people?
I think you actually make a very good point there, Councillor Oxby. The absolute core of the Green Master Plan is the extent to which we can work in partnership. We must influence other organisations, locally and nationally. Clearly, this fits within a much broader national picture, and that in itself, of course, is dependent on international factors too. But you know, one could spiral this out endlessly to some extent. But I think that there are a number of things which are strongly within our control. We can certainly project a leading role. We can certainly demonstrate by what we do as an organisation that these things, these projects can be done, can be achieved, and we can certainly provide a level of influence and a level of example, if you will, in our own activities as an organisation that help encourage broader activity on that front. I think as well, actually, it's a very good time to begin tapping into public feeling about this area. There's huge public interest in the sustainability agenda now. I don't think, in a lot of respects, we will be opening a brand new field or a completely new set of ideas for many people. I think there's a great deal of public appetite to make some solid achievements in this agenda. So I think there's very fertile ground for us to work on as an authority. I think we do have a very clear remit as the strategic authority within the county area of Lincolnshire to show an element of leadership and determination in this factor. as we mentioned much earlier in the meeting, we also do have a number of opportunities and channels to actually influence upwards towards to government, to help encourage them. So yes, it's a big challenge. You're absolutely right. The partnership is going to be. We can't do this alone. We absolutely can't do this alone. But I think we have a great track record in working with other organisations in the environmental field. And I think we have a lot of opportunities to take those forward. So I'm really excited about the whole area.
David, could I just add something in there? Is that all right?
Of course, Helen. Yes, if that's all right with you, Chairman.
Fine. Just very briefly, as part of the Green Master Plan.
Oh, if that was me, I'd have lost all account. Then I wouldn't remember what I was saying.
It might happen.
You were probably stopped in midstream rather than mid-flow.
Yeah, true.
Again, sorry to interrupt.
Good. So just
Thank
going
you.
back to what I was saying, midstream cut off. Because I drive nearly 50 miles to Lincoln, I'm not surprised by these figures, because people like me, I haven't been to Lincoln now since, the day before lockdown. So, and I know there's several other people like me. However, I have had to have visits from IT people who've had to come from Lincoln to me. So that may have negated it a little. But we can't really say that it's the same, because I personally am very much missing the meeting other councillors, the feedback, I don't feel so engaged, because sitting at home in Pinchbeck, it's not the same as coming to Lincoln and speaking to other councillors and sitting in meetings personally. This is okay, but I think we've got to have a balance. I hope we will still be coming, even if it puts the business miles up, because I don't feel it's quite the same. Certainly not for me. I don't know how other people feel. I'm hoping this is temporary up to a point. I don't mind this for pre-meetings and it's quite small meetings, but I'd hate to think I was never going to come to the council offices again, actually. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Sneath. What do you think to that, David? You've frozen, David. I think we've lost David at the moment. Okay, so should we just carry on for a second? Or do you want to come in, Claire, on that? Should we carry on? Yeah, Vanessa, do you want to come in?
Happy to pick up on that, because that's somewhere that my world and David and Helen's world rather overlap here. And I think it's a really interesting question for the organisation, isn't it? And something we'll all grapple with, and how we balance out the business miles. I think many of us probably agree with Councillor Sneath that there's an aspiration to have a bit of a mix, but probably it's about what lessons can we learn from where we've been, and think about whether it's, if we were to, as and when life returns to a bit more normal, would we have say inception meetings for projects where people come together, and probably close down of projects people may come together, but those meetings that are in the middle we may well be able to do virtually, and I think as officers that could give real opportunities for connecting with people who are physically much further apart, who we don't connect with now. So I think that there are lots of positives, but like most things in life, there's a bit of balance to be had for many of us. So I'm sure David may have some thoughts on that, but it's the organisation finding a balance.
Thank you, Vanessa. Yeah, I'm afraid I just dropped out with a poor connection at my end. Can you hear me, Chairman?
Yeah, I can hear you now. It wasn't.
Okay.
It was planned, David. I'm sorry, I did plan that, but you got back. So.
Actually, I rather thought it proved what Councillor Sneath was saying about difficulty of connectivity. It is a challenge, actually. I think we'd all recognise that. Well, as I mentioned in presenting the paper, there are ways in which we would ordinarily have developed something like the Green Master Plan, which assumed a much higher degree of personal sort of face-to-face communication. And at the moment, I think it is really quite hugely challenging to maintain the levels of communication and the whole range of different forms of communication that we ordinarily take for granted without even knowing it, when we have these actually quite limited direct channels available to us, which don't give us necessarily the full access to, say, even sort of tone of voice, perhaps, or the sort of the way you might use your body language to express something to a larger group of people. So there are big challenges. I think Councillor Sneap is right. There is a balance to be struck, what I am hopeful of, though, is that the work we're doing through the Green Master Plan will enable us to create that balance in an informed way, and in a way that allows us to transform the way we work as an authority for the better for the future.
Yeah, I agree, definitely. Yeah, I mean, it is very challenging. You know, especially like you just popped in and popped out again. The internet connection over the county isn't good in some places, especially the more rural areas we get. And also it is. I mean, I'll be honest, it is the social aspect as well. You know, if someone is living on their own, or you know, you do look forward to going into the office, and I'm sure it is for a lot of staff as well. So I think we've got to come to a happy medium. So maybe, you know, maybe using the office a couple of days a week, working from home a couple of days a week. I don't know. It obviously has to be looked into and looked into further, doesn't it? But I'm sure there is going to be ways of working. But I hope these meetings do go back to the county again very soon. So if there's no more comments, there's nobody's coming up in the chat line. Is anybody else wish to comment on this? No? Okay, so the actions for this were the committee has been asked to consider the options for delivery and publicity of the Green Master Plan, which I think we've done that. The proposal is that we move and support the progress made on the Green Master Plan, which I know we do. We've just asked, obviously, a few considerations there, that we work with other organisations, districts, environment, which I know you're doing already. Also maybe include the Towns Fund, which again you're doing already, and involve the public as much as possible, and I think that's all we can do. So if I can ask for your agreement, if anybody dissents, please indicate in the chat now. No one's objecting, so thank you. That's agreed. Thank you, David. Very interesting report.
Thank you, Chairman.
No problem. Right, where are we now? Number 8. Oh, this is my baby. The Agricultural Bill. Right, this is the item provides an update on the current progress of the Agricultural Bill. It's presented by Vanessa Strange, Head of Infrastructure and Investment, and we'd like to invite members of the committee to comment on the report. Again through the chat. So it's over to you, Vanessa.
Many thanks. Good morning, committee. Again, this is an opportunity for us just to reflect on both the progress of the Agriculture Bill, but also a wider conversation, which I know members always like to have around the agri-food sector as it stands at the moment. The bill itself continues to make rather slow progress, and we're still in Laws Committee stage before recess. We are continuing to work closely with DEFRA as the bill progresses, but particularly around the ELMS agenda, which was the Environmental Land Management Scheme, which will be a really fundamental part of the Agriculture Bill, both in terms of how landowners may be able to access funding opportunities in the future, but also in terms of delivering that whole green agenda that we've just been talking about in the previous item, really. So everything from driving the kind of biodiversity agenda to water management, soil health and carbon in terms of that landscape scale change really will be driven by ELMS. And certainly talking to the sector, which we do a lot, we continue to engage with them. there's a real sort of frustration about the lack of detail which continues to come forward. During the summer, there were further workshops which we engaged with DEFRA to ensure that the Lincolnshire farming voice continued to be heard within those conversations. But farming sector are really crying out for more detail in terms of the medium and long term, particularly at a time where the last 12 months things have been particularly challenging, certainly from a weather perspective. They've had to deal with a really difficult period in terms of rainfall, in particular, either far too much or not enough. And even now, actually, for those in cereal world, there are lots of people struggling to get combining done. So that remains something of a challenge. In addition, I think it's worth saying that at the same time, there are many people within the sector who want to diversify. And we've seen that really through a recent leader call where we've had an oversubscription from farming sectors and others for investing in machinery. And also, in terms of, I've just shared a statistic within the paper about the levels of diversification we already have, particularly in terms of people diversifying into the visitor economy and other elements. So one of the things that I would like members to think about is how we may interact with the sector itself. So the County Council supports the agriculture and horticulture sector, agriculture and horticulture meeting, whereby farmers, landowners, wildlife trust, a whole range of people come together, and traditionally we've invited members from the committee to be part of that. We're due to meet again later in the autumn, and whether members would like a general invite or whether someone would like to represent the committee is a question I had. And then also just to make members aware that at future committee meetings, we will look to have a presentation from the Rural Services Network to update us on progress they've made following the grant that we were able to secure for them last year. And also a presentation from County Farms in terms of the work that they're doing and the opportunities to deliver some of the green agenda as well. So I would really appreciate comments from members and thoughts on the paper. Thank you.
Thank you, Vanessa. Is there any comments from members? Councillor Austin is the first one.
Thank you, Chairman. I hadn't wanted to be first, sorry about that. First of all, something I probably should know, two simple questions I want to ask. Who's at the bottom of page 42, well, that's 42 of my meeting papers, it says the national pilot for the environmental land management. I wondered who was in that. And something else I think I probably should know, the Lincolnshire Agricultural and Horticultural Forum, who actually goes to that, please? And then I've got one other comment I could make.
Okay. So in terms of the national pilot, so I understand that both the University of Lincoln and the Wildlife Trust are secured as pilots. I do understand that there are a couple of other large businesses in the county who have suggested that they might be as well. And in terms of the Agriculture and Horticulture Meet Forum, my words right, traditionally in the last couple of meetings, we've opened that up to members generally to attend from this committee. And I know last year we had a well-attended event up at Bishop Burton at the showground. A number of members of the committee attended that. We had DEFRA speaking at that event. It is a fairly open forum, and we're keen to kind of engage people from across the sector, but also those with kind of wider interests. So we have had people attend, for example, from machinery dealerships to kind of try to express the impact of the changes in the sector on their business, but also those who are interested in the environmental agenda as well.
Thank you. May I continue then, please, Vanessa? Thank you. It shows as though the forum then has got a fairly fluid membership. It's anyone who's interested could come. One thing always intrigues me, maybe because, of course, I suppose I come and my interests are in, well, the Food Valley, aren't they? And that's where I live. It always intrigues me, though, please, in that area. Pick for Britain. I used to pick for Britain, I suppose. Before I went to university, I did a little bit of strawberry pulling, and I even pulled peas once. But be real, what is in there? This area, in our area, in the Boston area or wider, an area that could be, the man in the street, the students, the furloughed workforce, what realistically could they be doing? Because I don't sort of think, well, someone will go and say, well, I'll pick a few cauliflowers or a few Brussels sprouts, will they? So, it's the aspiration is sort of like wartime, and I can remember straight after the war, all these local women coming on a bit of land that we had and picking up of the potatoes and so on. I can still smell the smell of them. But the potatoes, I mean, not the radish. What's realistic, please, these days?
I think that it's a very interesting question, and I think it'll be interesting to see what the results are from how successful we've been in trying to recruit people. I suppose there's that element of sort of wartime call to it, but there's also many of our students go and work abroad, travel around Australia perhaps, and they think nothing of going and doing some farm work, but perhaps they wouldn't consider doing it in the UK. So there was that consideration. I think increasingly a lot of that activity happens through agencies or gang labour providers, if we like. Perhaps a lot of furloughed staff have been more tempted to do warehouse work than previously, and how many of them we could tempt into a field-based environment is perhaps challenging, and I'm sure we're all very aware of conversations about how keen people are to do what is really at times really physically hard work, and I speak as someone who has done it as well. It can be a challenging environment for people to work. So all I can say is that we can find out how things have gone and report to you what the summer has looked like from a labour supply point of view. I don't have those figures just yet, but yes, it'd be interesting to take a look into it.
Thank you. A final comment, if I may. Of course, we do still have, on the whole, Eastern European workforce, because that's what the majority of the local gangs are made up of. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Austin. We've got Councillor Matthews next.
Hello, Vanessa. Sorry, just think I'm speaking, am I? Yeah, that's fine. First off, it's a general commentary, which I think you've covered in your report very well. I'm waiting to work with my farmer colleague to go and collect some barley. It's been such a frustrating season that we must have a lot of very, very emotionally tied up farmers at the moment. And I don't know if that's going to help or not, in the sense of the continuation of their traditional role faced against this funding. So that's, I don't ask you to comment on that, but just to say,
it truly is a complicated switch on the ground, brought about by the weather and by COVID. My key point is, who are going to be the managing agencies for the environmental land management? Will LCC have a role here? Will it be our countryside services? And if so, we'll be able to draw down money to fund these agencies, or will the government make a grant to us to enable us to have the manpower to fund these agencies? Because this links to my previous question about the tourism infrastructure and the greening and all of that. It means that public access to green spaces is going to be greater, and that means, in essence, the green spaces become part of the public estate. Who is going to actually manage the stuff that comes about as a result of that? Increased tourism, increased cars, increased all sorts of things.
I think that's a hugely interesting question to which I have failed to get the answer yet, but we have been asking it. I think particularly when we talk about managing things at a landscape scale, it does suit a role of a local authority position, I suppose, and what the revenue support may be in doing that is a question we continue to ask DEFRA. Members will be aware that historically payments have been managed by the Rural Payments Agency, and when schemes have perhaps changed or evolved, that has been quite challenging for them to manage. The system that we're talking about in Elms is far more complicated. If the current scheme is extremely basic, which is basic payment scheme, is essentially, if you have land, you're able to gain funding based on an area payment. This is now talking about something much more detailed, and there is a lot of concern nationally and within the sector that will be very complicated for the RPA to deliver in terms of detail and the sort of mapping and monitoring that would potentially be required. There's a lot of hope in terms of the kind of digital data agenda. So certainly some of our larger farms have been trialling the use of digital technology a lot more. Again, that probably starts to suggest the difference in the sector, even within Lincolnshire, where you've got very, very large landowners who are able to invest in that kind of technology. And it feels a long way away from some of our smaller family-based farms who may struggle to do that, and layer into that the challenges we've talked about in terms of broadband provision and other elements, and we start to understand the very mixed picture that I think we're dealing with. So I don't have the answer, but it is one that we are continuing to ask from our seat here at the County Council in terms of what our role would be, and other agencies as well, as things evolve in terms of that kind of Natural England role, who have historically managed some of the more environmental countryside stewardship type schemes. So we'll keep you updated is the best I can say.
Thank you very much. It was a horrible question. Not trying to embarrass you or put you on the spot. There is a big black hole in the heart of this, which is how is it going to work and who's going to run it? I did want to thank you because you've set up a couple of conferences and consultations to enable us to put more input into this. And I'd like to put my hand up and say I'd be very interested to come to those to speak on behalf of my local farming community. Should we be in the LCC, should be running some sort of consultancy with these farms to find their views? I know that the NFU are, and I know some lobby groups are, but actually, is there a role for us in this? Because in the end, we're going to have pieces in 5 years' time. We should be involved in actually creating the shape of it if we've got to do that.
I agree. I think that's the intention of the forum to some extent, is to gain some of that knowledge. I think where we struggle is perhaps to gain a fully representative picture of what farming looks like in Lincolnshire. So I think even those who attend would probably acknowledge themselves. They are often similar faces who are involved with other groups. The nature of people, perhaps some people are much keener to be involved with meetings than others, but we need to work really hard to try and get some other voices around the table, I think. So working with partners to try and find some of those people who may be keen, whether that's the NFU, CLA, but also people like LRSN to say, actually, have you got some people who would like to be advocates too? So I think getting that real cross-section is important and something we need to do better at, I think.
Thank you.
Thanks, Vanessa.
Thanks. We've got no other speakers, but if I can just make comment, as you thought I might do. The Lincolnshire Agriculture Horticultural Forum, I mean, I'd love to be more involved in that, and I'm sure Councillor Matthews would as well. Certainly, I would, anything that I can do to assist or sit around the table, or I'll be there, as you know. And as I say, I know it's close to Councillor Matthews' heart as well, so he would be as well. We know we've got a lot of challenges this year, as we both know. You know, they couldn't get the crop set, now they can't get it harvested, and what there is to harvest, there's nothing there. So certainly there's going to be challenges moving forward. Especially with the smaller farmers, as we know, there's going to be a lot of farmers that is going to be a huge, I believe, or towards the end of the year anyway. And as in your paper, you know, diversification, I think small farmers are going to be taken over by the big farmers, unfortunately, which is really sad for me, as I grew up in a small farm. And you know, it is a sad way that we can't get more youngsters into the industry. That's really where I think we are going to fail, that they are just going to be working for the big boys, and I think that's a little bit sad. I know Vanessa and I are talking about this, about how we can move young people on, and we've got the college as well, haven't we? We've got Rise Home, so it is sad. But this, I mean, hopefully it will work. I don't know whether it will bring help to them with financial help. I mean, that is the big thing. They've got nowhere to turn to at the moment. They've got bills coming in, and a lot of other businesses have been able to get government help. The agricultural industry hasn't been able to get any help at all. So that's really the worrying factor. So, I mean, all we can do really, I suppose, is try and do what we can, and let's hope this agricultural bill get, you know, that's all I've really got to say. Very sad, makes me sad.
Indeed, thank you.
No problem. Right, so there's no further speakers. So the action today, the committee has been asked to note the report and asked to consider how the committee can interact, which I think we've done. The proposal is that we note the report and endorse the work of the Agriculture and Horticultural Forum. And we also move that we ask the Lincolnshire Rural Support Network to join the committee at a future meeting. I think this is very important. They're doing some fantastic work out there with vulnerable people, the vulnerable farmers that need help, to provide us with an update on their work. We'll also ask Corporate Property to provide an update regarding our county farms estates. Again, these are a real concern to me, how they're going to pay rents in the future. So if we can have a report as soon as possible from them. Can I ask you all for if anyone dissents, please indicate in the chat now. No, nobody's coming forward. So thank you, that's agreed. Thank you, Vanessa. Thank you for the report. Right, so we're moving on to item 9, which is the Boston Infrastructure Works. This item provides the committee with a brief overview of the projects proposed as part of the Boston Infrastructure Works, invites the committee to highlight any additional scrutiny activity. The item will be presented by Warren Peppard, who's head of our development management. And again, anybody who wishes to comment, please put it in the chat. So over to you, Warren.
Thank you, Chair. I assume you can hear me.
Can, yeah, loud and clear.
Thank you very much. As you would have all read from the report, this paper today is really to give the committee an introduction by giving a very brief overview of the projects which we're planning to deliver in Boston. The delivery follows a capital budget investment by LCC in circa £1.5 million, which followed discussions with leaders of Boston and Lincolnshire to identify issues arising in Boston. As we all know, Boston is one of our largest urban areas, which makes its economic success very important. And again, I think the economic successes will be further widespread than just local benefits, but also across the county and the wider East Midlands areas. The issues at the moment, which I think are sort of presenting barriers to the growth in Boston, namely are around three areas now: flood risk, traffic congestion, and the struggling high street. So I was tasked to come up with some schemes which would probably help unlock those issues. And in discussions with my counterparts across various service areas in the county, we initially came up with a long list of about 50 schemes which we felt could provide benefit to Boston. Those 50 obviously needed to be shortlisted because of the restrictions on budgets, and through discussions with executive members, we eventually came down to a shortlist of 8 schemes. And again, the shortlisting exercise was very careful to link back to other county initiatives, such as the Boston Transport Strategy, the Sustainability Agenda, and the health agendas, etc. So the 8 schemes which we've ended up with, we feel give the maximum sort of benefit to value ratio, which should help to stimulate further investments in Boston. The schemes have been outlined obviously in the paper. In Appendix A, there's a little bit more detail on the schemes in relation to cost and delivery dates. As today is just purely an introduction, the purpose really is to seek committee's view on whether any of the schemes require further scrutiny at future committees in relation to things like cost, specific details of the scheme, and any other issues which committee may wish to raise. So it's been a very succinct presentation by me, so I apologise. It is a very small paper, but again, the purpose is to give just committee an introduction to what we are doing. So I will welcome questions and any advice, if you like, which we can bring to future committees. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, I think the paper, yes, as you say, is quite clearly as it is. So we have got a question. Councillor Austin.
Thank you. Hardly surprising, is it? First of all, thank you, and maybe even thank the chairman. So thank you, Warren, but thank you, Wendy, for giving this committee, the opportunity of actually highlighting Boston. I think we appreciate it, because in particular, you noted, Warren, that it is not just the local importance of Boston, it is the wider importance. And interestingly, as regards the Towns Fund, which we referred to earlier in the meeting, I think of all the towns in the country that the basic projects put forward by the people and businesses in Boston have probably been amongst the most ambitious and not so sort of single-minded as some of them were. They're really looking towards the what the whole aim of the town funds is about. Now, and also thank you for acknowledging, Warren, that the 3 things are obviously the flood risk, which is really the dampener as regards roads, traffic, and also then the high street. Although, to be fair to Boston, I don't think our high street, well, it's perhaps now being hit a bit, but we didn't really in Boston feel the same impact of the closures and so on. You know, fortunately we didn't have a Debenhams. So those sort of things, I think perhaps started to hit us later in Boston. Now, if I can just look at the projects, some obviously now are done, if you like, or are in progress. And certainly the traffic signal ones, the junction improvements, I think are very sensible. There's one or two just things that, you know, concern me a little bit, or can you say what something means? With Project A, the Link Road, which from what I've seen of the what's come through from LCC so far, is that it's pretty well resurfacing or going a bit deeper than the surface. But please, what is sustainable movement choice in a road? You can go this way or you can go that way. You can't go sideways or you fall in the river. So you know, what choice is there, please? Right, and I ask that one, and then I'll come on to some more points, and I'll try and be quick after this.
Yeah, okay. I think in relation to A, again, I haven't got the full scheme details with me, but I can bring them to the next the meeting. But again, I think the road, although the description just reference resurfacing improvements, but I think there is a whole package of things along there, Councillor Austin, as well, which do include improving the footway surfaces and another small area of land along the route as well. And again, I think with all these sort of enhancement schemes, if you like, probably resurfacing was the wrong words to choose. But again, I think what we're trying to do, again, in the green world is to stimulate movement across these corridors, not just in the cars, but in other modes as well. So again, this very much links back to the work you've just referenced around the Towns Fund as well, and the fact that the Boston Port is a growing entity, and what we are doing is we are trying to stimulate and LCC show his commitment to that area generally, which will hopefully match additional other investments from other partners to grow that whole area per se. But as we mentioned before, next time, if it is going to be of interest for you, or we can do it offline, Councillor Austin, is we can present you with the scheme details and the drawings, so you're more aware of what is actually being delivered for each of the individual projects.
Okay, thank you. Well, that is sort of in town, obviously, which isn't my patch, but of course I'm interested in the whole area, well, in the whole county. But of course we have the problem with the dock, the one way in, and ideally it would be lovely if you could somehow get out to the east, but you can't because of housing and other businesses and so on. Right. Going on to number C, the garage is now demolished, and that's fine. And I'm glad that I made a point, I think, probably through to Andy Utherson, for heaven's sake, don't now start to build anything, let it go for building, because you need that space, if nothing else, for the distributor road and around about. But later on in this document, you referred to a road through to the dock. Now, the dock link road surely died about 15 years ago. How do you envisage that this could somehow link to the dock, short of bringing eventually road in, traffic in from the A52 and getting there? You know, this is something that I would probably outside this meeting, I think, you know, I'd like to know what's in your mind, please.
Yeah, we can certainly pick that up out of the meeting, Councillor Austin. I think what would be helpful for you and for others on the committee as well is that we enter these detailed discussions, you know, with the project lead, so we can bring the full scope of the projects and the details along with you to hopefully answer any questions. But yeah, I mean, depending on how you want to do this, Chair, we can either park it till the next committee, or we can take these discussions online direct with a select few members if you think that's a better way of doing it.
Well, obviously, I don't know what discussions you've already had with of senior officers and executive members at Boston Borough, but you know, I wouldn't remember, but even so, somebody who's not frightened of making themselves known, I'd appreciate knowing it, because any road like this is going anyway through my area. And another one that's referred to, and again, this does crop up with the Towns Fund, the railway line. I mean, it's the very, very important link to the dock link railway. And of course, the whole line is just a pathetic one-way line all the way from Grantham, isn't it, to Boston. So presumably that there's got to be talk in this one with the wider wider rail network.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think that scheme, if you like, is probably the most infant of the schemes we've listed. But as it states there, we are developing a strategic business case. The project brief hasn't been developed yet, but we are in the process of developing it. But again, I think my understanding is the intention is to link it to the wider network and not just, if you like, keep it in isolation to its immediate vicinity.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, thank you. I noticed that you refer to the appendix as storyboard, so I hope this story has a happy ending. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Relates to the appropriate members if they want in further information on that, Warren. Councillor Griggs has had to leave the meeting, but he just wanted to pass some comments on to you, just to say that it's fantastic that Boston is getting these schemes. And I know the schemes currently underway are greatly appreciated by his residents. He's had to leave the meeting. That's good. I mean, there's no more questions at the moment, but I mean, looking at it, it's anything that we can do to make Boston easier getting around, to me, is absolutely fantastic. And also the funding of the cycle and the walking improvement plan, I think that's really good news as well. So, yeah, thank you. Also, Councillor Elizabeth Sneaks wants to come in. She's raised her hand.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a comment, really. Obviously, coming from Spalding, I'm terribly jealous that they're getting all this, but we are excited by the fact about better road connections, because I know a lot of businesses locally, food businesses, are looking at this and thinking this is the way forward. Using the port more, generally better roads for our haulage. You know, so many of our heavy lorries leaving Spalding area going towards Boston. It's just going to be great. So it's all good stuff, and I'm really pleased for Boston and us as well, actually. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Sneath. Thank you. So there's no further comments. So the actions were that we were invited to review the list of schemes and highlights for discussion. Any additional scrutiny activity which could be included for future updates. So the proposal is, I move that we receive the report and the list of schemes. We've all highlighted how good they are to see what's happening in Boston. So can I ask you, are all in agreement? And if anyone dissents, please indicate in the chat now. Okay, so that's agreed. So thank you, Warren, for that, and look forward to your next update.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Right, so we're on to item 10, which is our Environment and Scrutiny Committee work programme. This item enables the committee to comment on the content of its work programme for the coming year and to ensure that scrutiny activity is focused where it can be of greatest benefit. And the item will be presented by Daniel. So over to you, Daniel.
Thank you, Chairman. The work programme is shown on page 56 of the agenda pack. The next meeting is on the 20th of October. There are a few items listed there. Have been informed that item 4, review of mineral and waste local plan, will be put back until the January 2021 meeting. And I've also noted down the points raised from the meeting today around corporate property with the county farms, and also the rural support network being added to the agenda. And I'll work with officers to programme those in. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it'd be good if we could get them into October if possible, because I mean it is urgent. I think that we do look at that. So I mean whether they will be able to do that for us, I don't know, but if you could say that I really would like them to see them there, that would be really good.
I shall do that, yeah.
Thank you. So any comments on the work programme from anybody? Any requests? Silence is golden always. Can I ask that the work programme is approved then? Does anyone dissent? Please indicate in the chat now. No one's objecting, Daniel, so that's been approved. So that now concludes the business of the meeting. Thank you everyone for your attendance. It's been much appreciated, and very interesting items on the agenda today, so I do appreciate everybody's attendance. You may now leave the meeting by using the red phone icon on the taskbar to end the call. And I look forward to seeing you all soon in person.
Thank you.
Chairman.